How's everyone doing tonight? If you don't know, I'm Kyle Adams. I'm also known as Captain Spish. It's what my business is named after. If you want to know what Captain Spish came from and why I named myself that, you can ask that in the Q&A portion, or you can see me at my booth. I'm just over there next to the tie-dye lady. Anyhow, I'm here to talk about greyhound behavior specifically, but also dog behavior in general. And as you know, the greyhounds are kind of a fairly unique breed, to say the least. Very laid back, but also bursts of energy. I kind of like that with dogs, having a combination of lots of energy, but also knowing when to chill. That's a quite valuable asset for people with pets. With a lot of my clients that I work with, that's a big challenge of theirs, is getting enough exercise for their dogs. Because the dogs they have are working class dogs, German Shepherds and herding type dogs that need a lot of exercise and a lot of mental engagement just to be healthy and happy. Need so much more enrichment than the average dog. And the Greyhounds, they're what most people want the pet to be. A dog that waits at home for them, is pretty well behaved most of the time in general, and is very happy to see you when you come home, and either will go for a walk or not and just hang out with you. And kind of an ideal pet. So, as you can see. But sometimes I, of course, would be called in for greyhounds that have behavioral issues, such as reactivity to other dogs, overexuberance of prey drive, which is something that isn't necessarily, it can be redirected, but not necessarily helped with these guys. That's a very deep instinct. And counter surfing. Who in here has a dog that loves to just swoop on that counter, slide along, and get everything? Not as many hands going up as I expected. I have bull terriers mostly, and they're short, squatty dogs. The counter's not usually in their purview, especially since they're not really more than knee high most of the time. So first of all, if you have a counter surfer, you have to make sure that you don't make it a game when you catch them. So if they get an object, you can't necessarily pursue them and make it very fun, unless, of course, they're going to poison themselves to death. And there's the thing about dog behavior and working with dogs with behavioral issues, is there's always a balance between keeping them from hurting themselves and others, and also not encouraging the behavior. But, safety first. Make sure they don't hurt themselves and others. But I usually go in with an attitude, instead of panic and readiness, like a quarterback trying to capture someone, or a linebacker trying to tackle someone, is to go in with more distinct energy that's focused and quiet, and just pursue them for that object, because you don't engage as much. I tell people, look down your nose at your dog. Like, stay up here, keep your head up, look down like this. Because if you're doing this and bending down, you're engaging with them. This is you to them. You just think about how they go around. They're always face to face. It's another reason they jump up. We'll get to that later. But it's kind of connected with the jumping on the counter as well. But if you're keeping your presence up here and your energy low, and you're not making it too fun for them, you devalue the behavior to some extent. You're not rewarding it, because that's a big part of counter surfing too, is that they get this consolation prize of being able to keep something away from you and making it fun. So once you get the object, take it away from them carefully and steadily. Don't rip it out of their mouth. Just very steady pressure, and then encourage them and tell them when they're doing a good thing, that they release that object. First things first, make sure there's nothing on the counters they want, if you can really help it. A lot of times I'll tell clients, if you can totally clear the counter of anything dangerous objects, poisonous objects, food you don't want to lose, or objects you don't want to have damaged, because it's not always food. Sometimes, because of the game aspect, they like taking your glasses from the counter, or a knife. I had a client that got stabbed twice by their dog because it took a knife and was running around with it and swinging it, and hit the person in the leg a couple times. So you have to watch out for that. But keep it as clear as you can, if possible, number one. When they're getting up there, a lot of times I like to mostly ignore the behavior if they can't get into anything. And because if they go up there multiple times and there's nothing interesting up there, and you're not going in and engaging and making it fun or interesting, most of the time they're going to learn counters don't have stuff up there if people aren't present. Now, if you have a counter surfer that jumps up while you're present, obviously you're going to want to gently and carefully block them off the counter and redirect them somewhere. So having them go somewhere where they know they should stay, so having a place command or putting them in a crate, which some greyhounds aren't great at, but some are. Just having somewhere they know they should be can also reduce the risk of counter surfing while you're prepping food or so on. I mean, the dogs work through association. They know the counters are a place for food and fun and smelly things. So if they're not allowed in the kitchen while you're prepping, that can really kind of cut down on a lot of the issues. They've evolved through the decades and the centuries specifically to scavenge food and to steal food from humans. That's why humans domesticated dogs in the first place. They came into our campsites because we got food, and they snatch the food and they run off. So it's deeply ingrained. It's a part of who they are. It's not worth being mad at them for it. So try to keep those emotions down. Sometimes we waste a lot of our emotional energy being upset or sad or angry about a situation that just is what it is, and the energy is better used focusing on a solution and a plan than just feeling upset about it. So it's not that you don't have a right to your feelings, but try not to fuel them any more than you need to. You want to be able to put that energy somewhere better. Accept that you feel that way and move on. And that's the best way to keep moving along with dogs that have a lot of worse behavioral issues like reactivity and aggression. So knowing what your dog's motivated by, such as either affection, toys, or food, is critical. My boy Coboon is my little bull terrier. You may have seen him barking out there. He's quite boisterous. He's very treat motivated, and he's very toy motivated, and he's very affection motivated. So I have to pick which one. So most people think, oh, that must be great. You can pick anyone you want. But it's about the situation that he will accept one more than another. And knowing your dog is critical, knowing in what situations, at what anxiety levels, they'll accept either treats, affection, or a toy. Or which one of those things, either treats, affection, or toy, increases energy that you don't want when you're trying to bring their energy down. Because a less energetic, calmer dog is a more stable mind. It's more rational. It can listen to commands, can take direction, right? So if we can keep their anxiety and their energy and their excitement down, we keep their mind more rational and more open to be able to take instructions and corrections and redirection. So you can use those objects, those things to reward, to make sure you reinforce when they're doing something good, such as stay out of the kitchen, go lay on your bed when I'm doing things on the counter. And then I, as a human, need to be responsible and clean the counter and make sure it's safe. So when the dogs go in there, they won't get into something to hurt you, stab you maybe, or poison themselves with some ibuprofen or anything else up there. So diligence and planning is very critical. And then, of course, you can use deterrents if you really want to. One of my favorites is cayenne pepper powder. It's non-acidic. It won't hurt their eyes. It won't burn their stomach. It's not terribly hot, but most dogs don't like it. And the more they sniff it, the aerosols, the more they get into whatever it is, it kind of gets hotter and hotter, and then it dies down really fast. So it's kind of a built-in correction. It usually is not too messy on counters. You can wipe it up pretty easily. It's not usually staining. And it's easily available. I even grow it in my garden just so I can use it for deterrence and give it to clients for free. Hey, put this on your counter, and most dogs aren't going to like that. Now, there are some dogs that like spicy things, just like the no-chew and the sour sprays. Maybe 1 in 3 dogs I've experienced don't like the no-chew sprays, and they don't like the sour sprays, and the rest of them think you're just giving them seasoning to something. Oh, great, this thing tastes even better now to chew. So experimentation is key, but most dogs don't like the spicy. But my wife's dog, she's a galgo. I swear it's because she's from Spain. She loves hot stuff. So sour spray it is for her. So getting to know your dog and their experimentation is very critical. But so you can use a passive deterrent. They sell non-toxic double-sided tape that doesn't feel good too for dogs specifically to keep them from getting on couches or counters or whatever you don't want them to be on if you're not home. But I still think the best way is to make sure your counter is just free and clear of any objects you don't want damaged or that could hurt the dog or you. But sometimes we all have limited storage, and you got to use the space you got to use. So each situation is a little different. So does that help anyone? Do you think that are things you haven't thought of before? I know some of this is kind of like duh, but you'd be surprised at how much of my job is telling people duh stuff. It's just because I used to feel bad charging people to come help them because, and I don't think the people are stupid. I'm just like, well, don't let them do it. Just go stop them and come over here and tell them to do something else. Which to me is like, yeah, but a lot of people, it may be their first dog, or they've never had a dog that just, they've been spoiled by really, really good dogs that basically just take any direction you want. And then you get this one that comes along that needs special attention, special guidance, emotional corrections more than just physical or just redirection. And an emotional correction is about understanding the dog is at a state of emotion and anxiety that they are compelled to do certain things you don't want them to do. It's an instinct. An instinct is like a program from 10,000 BC. It's no longer really your dog at a certain point. When the dog is following a program, hey, I know what I think's going on. Instinct's saying, do this. And the dog the rational mind, the dog that you train, the dog that listens to you and understands what you're saying, literally basically just takes a back seat. And now it's just program. And it's not your dog being mean or any kind of emotion behind it, your dog disobeying you. They can't obey you. They're not in a mind state to control themselves for what they're doing. They're just following an impulse. And we have to derail that instinct, that impulse, through either putting an input that impulse isn't ready to take in. So for instance, when I have a dog that wants to harm me, because I work with dogs that no other behaviorist or trainer will deal with. I actually travel the country specifically because people will call me from Nevada or New York or Germany. I don't travel to Germany, but I do like Skype calls. I had a Japanese call last year from Skype, but I'll travel because other trainers and behavioralists, either because of insurance reasons or because they're gun shy, and I don't blame them, won't deal with a dog that's bitten somebody. I do. I specifically go into situations to give that dog a last chance to live. And I've saved a lot of dogs' lives that have bitten people. And the way I throw a monkey wrench into a fear reaction is by not following my fear instincts. Not that I'm not afraid. So for one instance, I had a 120-pound Mastiff charge from across the room and break their leash and come for me. My clients are freaking out. I'm kind of freaking out because I'm like, I'm going to get bit. And the key to not being bit badly or being bit at all in some cases is to be okay with being bit. So when I tell clients, well, you're going to have to just accept you're going to be bit and not be so panicked and worried about it. Just accept your emotions and put it in the back. So this dog's coming charging at me, full bore, and it's tall enough where it doesn't even have to jump up. And I'm like, okay, I need to pick a body part that I'm going to accept getting bit. And usually the forearm's pretty good. You have some nerves through here, so you want to kind of keep an angle this direction. So I feed this dog my arm, and I just stand still. And so his instincts scream at him, say, I'm afraid, he's afraid. Fear only has 4 reactions: fight, flight, fawn, freeze, right? So I just make sure that in my mind, genuinely and truthfully, I'm not going to run from this dog, not even in my mind. I'm not going to fight and battle this dog. I'm not going to defend myself and harm them to protect myself. I'm not going to freeze and just get stuck. I'm thinking still, I'm flowing. And I'm not going to just collapse on the ground. Of course, fawn is not something that humans typically do. It's a vagal nerve response. It's kind of a whole thing. So I just accept I'm going to be bit. I pick what part is going to be bit, and I'm not going to run, attack, or freeze or fawn from this dog. And they jump up and bite me, and I hold their head onto my arm so they don't rip at me. And they feel my strength. They feel my calmness. They did the worst thing they could do to me, the absolute most powerful thing the dog can do to another individual. They bit me. And that still didn't do what fear knew should happen in me. Fear said, he is going to attack you, run away from you, freeze or fawn. And I didn't do any of those things. I just say, okay, here, I'll show you who I am. You can't change me. You can't change the core of who I am. Your fear won't make my fear react that way. And to a dog, that's ultimate power. How much more strength can you have to override your instincts? The same instincts they have. They have no concept of that. So when they bit me and they felt the calmness and the strength and the resolve to connect with him, he let go, peed himself, and ran to the corner and shook. This 120-pound Mastiff that just bit this 250-pound guy peed itself and ran. It should have been me. The roles are kind of reversed there. But it's so the true act of love, in my opinion, that's where I get it from. That's how I can do that. It shows them power and strength that isn't force. It's immovability. My heart couldn't be moved. My body couldn't be moved. So one of us had to. One of us had to change. And because that dog didn't know how not to react to fear, he had to pick one of those choices, and he ran. And then I went to him gently and calmly. All he's giving it out, because I'm not trying to corner him, to touch him and show him, you bit me, I showed you absolute power, and I'll come and use that power to help you. And that dog never bit anyone ever again, even though it bit 4 people before me, because it knew, well, not all visitors are going to respond the same way. Not all visitors are going to follow fear, and not all visitors are going to be kind about it. But this guy was. And I broke a cycle. Not that I went in there trying to get bit. I tried to avoid that at all costs. But that broke a cycle in that dog's mind. It threw a wrench in what fear said should happen. And that's kind of the way we have to deal with anxieties and fears sometimes. Hopefully not that you'd get bit by your dog. But we don't let their anxieties overwhelm us or fill our hearts. We vent that anxiety, we breathe, we remind ourselves we're people. We're not down here with them. We don't get drug into their world. We stay up here and see what's really going on and where the out is. Where's the out for this cycle of anxiety or fear they're in? And let's constantly redirect them that way and show them that we feel anxious too. We understand you're upset. We're upset for you, but the one that's being weird isn't necessarily the dog that's triggering you, the people that are triggering you, or the situation that's triggering you. That's the world. That happens. But you're the one that's reacting strangely. So you don't need to not be afraid, dog, right? I never tell a dog not to be afraid. I don't tell clients not to be afraid. And I don't tell dogs or clients not to have anxiety. You have a reason, you have a right to feel those ways. That's your brain telling you something's wrong, something's going on. But it's your responsibility as humans to override that instinct and think, yes, there's anxiety, there's a reason for this. My dog might bite this dog, someone might get hurt. So instead of being pulled into that reality, let's stay up above. How do I avoid that? What's the plan? What happens if this dog reacts this way? Should I or can I correct it early and redirect it somewhere else? Just like I was talking to you earlier about, don't let them linger. So if a dog's sniffing and lingering, they think they're weird, they're getting stuck. The other dog then sees your dog's being weird, and a friendly handshake turns into an awkward, weird, long, stretched out thing. So if you recognize that, you can then say, oh, well, sniff for 5 seconds, and you're done. Let's move on. And in your mind, you see those in steps, and you see what direction based on the situation. My dog's head should veer this way, and we should go this way because that's more open, instead of going around the dog or going an awkward way. And if you have a dog that could snip at other dogs, you want to be able to experiment, use a muzzle. Most dogs can get used to a muzzle, but you want that safety net so you can experiment and see the body language and your work with your timing and see how much you're creating and triggering a reaction versus actually causing the dog to learn a better way to react. And that can be a safety net for you so no one can get hurt. Now, having another dog that can cooperate with reactivity, and a client, but a friend or someone you know that understands, hey, this dog might punch my dog with his muzzle. Well, are you okay with that? Can your dog handle that? Then that would be helpful for me, and then you can experiment with that dog. So open communication is very good with other people with dogs and with your dog. So basically, you just want to be able to rise above and use your feelings and instincts to guide you and inform you as they're supposed to. But don't get stuck there. I sometimes use the example of a new driver. So they're driving down this country road, they're going 60 miles an hour, and there's this right angle turn and this huge oak tree, and it's full of scars, and there's bumpers and headlamps and chunks of car there where you see other people have hit that tree. So you know it's a reality. People can and will hit that tree. And the new driver will just think about that and focus on that tree, and they're likely to hit it because they're focusing on the tree. You hit what you aim at for the most part. So the new driver's stuck in this cycle of this tree. It's been hit. I'm going to hit it. Oh, no. And that's sometimes what we do with our dogs. Oh, they've bitten in the past. They're going to do it again. Oh, no. And all you're focusing on is the bad thing that could happen, and you're not giving a better way out. So an experienced driver will see that turn in that tree. Yes, this could happen. It has happened in the past. It could happen to me. But what should I do? I should slow down. I should focus on the curve and where I go. And even if there's a variable you couldn't predict, like an oil slick or a black ice, you're still going slower and you're already veering a different direction. You're less likely to hit that tree just hard head on. You're going to maybe graze it or hit it slower. So sometimes with dog behavior, we start out with just damage control. How can we minimize what could happen so we make this the best possible experience, right, for everybody, and make sure everyone's safe on top of it? So does anyone have any questions about what I've kind of been skipping over and jumping on? I'm just kind of trying to get in a broad view of how I approach dogs, how I read them, how I understand them, right? Okay. So other things with greyhounds I've noticed, counter surfing's one. I haven't personally experienced a lot of greyhounds jumping up. Do any of you get that experience a lot, jumping up on other people? You know what? Now I think of it, I take that back. My own greyhound does that. Now he just doesn't do it to me anymore, but he does what I call the thriller dance. You ever seen they jump up and go? The thriller dance? I call it the thriller dance, but anyway, it looks just like Michael Jackson's Thriller dance. But he does that, and then he'll slash me, like just slash at you, and just doing it so excited. So what I've done with my dog, with Ori, he's a 12-year-old greyhound out there. He's not very bright. He's kind of one of the dimmest dogs I've ever known. He's very, very sweet, but he doesn't think much. But so I just basically will create a perch for him so he lands on it, so he's not directly slashing me so much, and kind of just let him slide off. So usually I don't like to confront dogs when they jump up, like bump them or knee bump them or push into them, especially greyhounds. They're so majestic when they're fast. When they're running fast, they're so sure. But when they're at slow or no speeds, they're like a Jenga set. It's the only thing I can think of. They're almost like a Jenga. When you cuddle them, they're kind of like a Jenga set too in a bag. You got all those sharp points, but you still have to hug them. It's a new experience to me when I first had a greyhound. How sharp they were, but yet cuddly. Anyway, so you want to pay attention to that too. How stable is the dog? You don't want to be pushing them around. So I just basically view myself as like a V shape in front of me, and I'm just trying to just deflect them to the sides so they're not doing that. And I just do it enough and with as little energy as possible. As you want to add to it and make them do it more. We just want to absorb that energy as they jump up and kind of deflect them carefully. And eventually you kind of pull enough energy out where they're like, well, I want to see you and I want to show you I'm excited, but I don't know what else to do. And they get kind of in that state of, well, I don't know what else to do. And then you answer it. Well, you're all 4 feet on the ground now. You're no longer jumping up on me. So then I'm going to bring myself down to you and give you calm, gentle affection. So don't do it like this. You're not going to really get much this way. But when you're the way I feel more respected and loved, that's when I'm going to give you what you really are trying to get, which is my affection and my touch and to see me. And then they might go through the cycle again because they get all excited. We call it get dorky. They get real dorky and dump, just run around and go crazy. I'm always afraid they're going to wreck and break their hips or something. I've heard too many horror stories, I guess. I see them as much more delicate than maybe they are. I don't know. You'll have to tell me. Some of you out here probably have more experience than I do with directly living with greyhounds. I get a skewed kind of sampling of dogs with my work because I'm called in because the dog's kind of strange or has a problem. So I try not to take my experience about any breed as like, well, that's how the breed is. Try to keep my perspective kind of clear. But yeah, it's just think of it that way. So you see how I'm thinking about how my energy is and how it's affecting the dog. And I kind of see it like a shock absorber. The shock absorber doesn't fight the travel of a spring in a car. It doesn't just violently rip it around. It sucks energy out slowly and stabilizes the ride of the car in the spring. It keeps the energy of the spring stable. And that's kind of how I feel when I use a leash on a dog. I just absorb their motion, or when I touch or redirect them, I absorb and calm and bring it back down. Kind of like Tai Chi. It's the kind of the movements I see. I tell some clients about, what is it called? Karate Kid 2, I think it is. Where it's the drum. But instead of punching the dog, you're just thinking about the circular motions of redirecting. But kids these days are too young to know what Karate Kid 2 is anymore, so I'm kind of losing my relevance and I'm losing my references. I have to find new ones that make sense to the younger generation, so I don't have to explain it all. But yeah, just redirect, calm down, push it away. Some dogs, when they jump up and they're really, really insistent, then I'll say, well, redirect them to the side and step into their space a little bit. A lot of people have the reflex of when they're being jumped up on to back off, and that kind of encourages the dog to pursue. So at least stand your ground or do a slight push forward because they're really strong sometimes. Depends on your balance. So if they're really strong and they're knocking you off balance, just step into it and deflect them off to the side. And then always make sure every time you have to tell a dog no or what they shouldn't do, you want to be able to help them do something for you so you can then tell them a yes. So, no, don't jump up on me. Okay, you're on the ground? Yes, that's what I want. I'll reward that. And be willing to go through that, even like a robot, over and over again. Nope. Yes. Nope. Yes. So some breeds, like my bull terriers, it's like hitting your head against a brick wall. You're just like a robot. Nope, 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 nope. And it just seems so repetitive. But believe me, it's important. Repetitive is sometimes part of being consistent. And having faith in what you're telling your dog and what you're going to do with your dog, and knowing that in the future it's going to make it better so that you keep going through that repetitive motion, that's critical. And that's why I tell people, don't waste your emotional energy, and don't waste your words. If you want your dog to listen to you and you want to be something to be listened to, sometimes we need to turn our mouth off. Sometimes if you want to be loud, you have to be quiet. So if your dog is really, really hyper and their eyes are basically rolling in the back of their head and they're not listening to you, being silent and using your body language and how much attention you give and how much attention you don't give and the way you touch is going to have far more effect than saying, stop, 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 no, stop, no. Because all you're doing is joining the chorus of whatever noises in their head or whatever literal noises are coming out of their mouth. So you want to contrast. I've dealt with a lot of dogs that are just panicked. And if you're going in trying to use verbal cues and talk to them and calm them down, they'll either ignore you or you're making it worse. And I just have to show up like a ninja, just suddenly there. Hey. And so clients are yelling at their dogs when I'm on consultation, stop it, don't do that. And they're physically grabbing at their dog as they're barking at the mailman. I'm like, wait, come back here. And their dog's freaking out. And I just come over there and lean over the dog's shoulder and be like, shh, stop. No. So all the screaming they're doing doesn't startle the dog, but my real quiet sound does, because loudness is just contrast to what's the background. And if the background is really loud, then the opposite's going to be much more impactful and a gentle connection. And it also throws that monkey wrench into the behavior. So the behavior in this case with barking at the mailman or freaking out about something has become more of a habit, and they're used to the ritual of it. There's stimulus, they charge in, they make a bunch of noise, they're freaking out, the people come in and join in. Even if it's negative attention, it's still attention, and it's dually fueled. They're enjoying their frustration about the mailman and the fight about that, and they're enjoying the attention and the fight against the people. And so I come in and I devalue all of that, and I don't do a fight. I just have a leash, I say something quiet, I connect them, and I just gently, calmly remove them from the couch. And that's 20 times more effective in the moment than yelling, screaming, and physically fighting with them. And in the long run, it devalues that enough and calms them enough. It replaces the ritual with a new ritual. You bark, I come and see what it is, and I say what we do about it. And what we always do about it is, let's go over into the kitchen and get a treat. And so if your dog just got done doing something bad in quotations, and you redirect them to something else, if you think or you're worried about, well, if they bark at the mailman and they come and sit for me and I give them a treat, all they're thinking is, I barked at the mailman, I sit and I get a treat. So they connect the two things together, and that's a valid point. So I tell people, add another action that you ask for them. So a lot of dogs do definitely get that point, though, I just bark and I get a reward when I sit. So remove it a few actions. So bark, come and sit, good. Now let's go into the other room and sit again. And a dog that's calmed down and that's obedient and that sat for me twice, that gets the reward. Not the dog that just barked at the mailman and then sits down and gets the reward. So you see how you can add just another action and it can get a clearer point to them that don't bark at the mailman and it's like it didn't even happen. Just sit and obey me and then do it again. And that's great. Same thing with putting a dog in a crate. So whatever you put in a crate gets stronger. So I tell clients, have them come and sit for you, have them calm down, or anything. Just calm down a little bit more. Some dogs just aren't going to sit, depending on where they're at, with training and anxieties. Just have them come and do anything for you. Shake hands, look at me, whatever. And then bring them over to the crate. Okay, let's do something over here. Sit, stay, handshake, whatever. So the dog that's obeyed me twice and calmed down each time, even further, that obedient, calm dog goes in the crate to wait for me, right? It also doubly makes sure, so some of my clients worry about, well, I don't want the crate to be a punishment. Well, if they're doing something for you, then it's part of the reward. You come and obey, you calm down, you come and obey, you calm down, and then that goes in the crate. That's good. And then when you're calmer, you're less anxious, time flies quicker, you rest, and I appear home quicker in their perception because they're like children that way. The more anxious and upset they are, it's agonizingly long time. And the more calm and obedient they are, the time passes faster. And that can help reduce separation anxiety, which that's probably another problem that greyhounds, in my experience, have. Anyone here have greyhounds that are just attached to your butt? Like, oh my God, I'm really, like my wife's galgo. I've tried to help her with it, but you can't be a prophet in your own town. I tell her all the time, it's like, you believe in what I do. I tell you what to do. I tell you the same things I tell clients, and you just don't do them. She's like, I don't know. Okay, well, it's your dog. But her dog, Elle, is attached to her. Like, she'll go just 50 feet away, and Elle's like, oh, 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 oh. Elle can't be crated either. She's one of the few dogs I've owned that just can't be crated because she just, at all costs, she'll escape that crate. I know she'll harm herself. And that's okay. That's something else that people don't know. There's a lot of dogs that can't be crated. They just can't. It's not ideal. I believe it's something all dogs should have that skill to be able to be crated, because at some point in their life, they're probably going to have to be crated. So you might as well practice with that and make them cool with it. Just like I think all dogs should also be used to be muzzled, because at some point they might need muzzled. What if they break their leg, break their toe? There's a medical procedure your vet has to do, and I don't know about you, but there's some pain that if biting was in my purview, if this mouth got bigger, I'd probably bite people over it too. It's just because your dog's very friendly and wouldn't usually bite someone doesn't mean there's not pain response that would just make them reflexively react. Remember I said earlier about instinct? That's an instinct. That's not your dog biting someone. That's instinct demanding that they bite because of pain. Pain can make a dog act totally different than their true self. My Coboon loves dogs, sweet, tolerant. I use him to rehabilitate dogs that are fearful and aggressive of other dogs. What those dogs need is a dog that's truly trustworthy, one that wants to engage, but if that's too much, all they say is, hey, that's too much, and that dog accepts it, respects that feeling. Oh, well, I won't focus on you because I'm not here to make you upset. And if they're challenged, oh, I'm not here to challenge you, I'll healthy avoid. So if they challenge him in the face, he'll just look away, not in a oh crap way, but in a, oh, well, I'm not here to do that with you. And Coburn lets me deal with that dog if it's going too far. He trusts me that way because I've proven myself. But every dog that is aggressive to other dogs is really about broken trust or lack of good experiences or lack of experience at all. So Coburn helps give them their first ideal good experience. A dog that absolutely won't be aggressive back, that won't take the bait if they're barking, that just is himself and is confident, lets him be sniffed, and makes himself smaller. He'll army crawl if he really thinks he's threatening a dog. He'll make himself small and crawl. He does all he can to make sure he shows that dog respect of their feelings and that he knows what to do, even if what to do is nothing. Just let you be, let me be. But he will, because he has severe arthritis and he has a titanium plate in one leg and 16 screws from a leg break he had right above his knee many years ago, he has a lot of pain at night. And because of that, I have to tie him up so he can't charge, because he will charge the other dogs sometimes, especially since they skulk around because they're greyhounds. You know what they do? They're worried. Who's going like this? That really freaks him out. He doesn't like that. And then because he freaks out, they get worse. They get more nervous and still. And so is a cycle. But I tie him up so he doesn't react that way. I come in and I calm him down. But that's not Coburn. That is not anywhere in his nature. It's not like he is in any other situation. But because of pain, he is someone different. Because that's not Coburn. That's pain reaction. That's instinct. So anyhow, the separation anxiety, back to that. I kind of got on a little rabbit trail there. In my opinion, you have to combine a mix of increasing the quality of the time you spend with your dog and helping them learn that that's all they get and it's enough. So there's a practice of giving space and forcing them to give you space, and then coming back to correct, calm down, chill out, I'm still here, and then going away and coming back. Remember that robotic, repetitive, over and over and over thing? And when you're with your dog, taking time to take advantage of and have a conversation with the little things you do every day, such as feeding, letting them in and out of their crate if they're in a crate, in and out of your bedroom, in and out of the house, in and out of your car. All those things where they just automatically jump in or jump out or come in or go out or just eat. You have a conversation with it. Hey, wait first. Why don't you shake my hand first? Why don't you do something for me and then you get the food? Or wait, just because the door's open doesn't mean you go out. You go out when you're invited, and you're invited to go out when you're obedient and calmer, right? Doesn't have to be totally calm. That may not be possible for some dogs, but calmer, bring it down a couple notches and look to me, and then that dog can go out in my yard, or that dog can come into my house. And when you're giving that kind of engagement, that's really what separation anxiety is demanding. They're like, hey, I haven't done something with my human yet. I haven't connected deeply enough yet. I'm bored. I need something from them. I don't know what it is because I'm just a dog. But I need something more from them. I just don't know what it is. So when you engage them more and ask more of them and give them more direction and more rules and more boundaries, that connection, those little micro jobs that they do for you, make them feel more content with the time they do spend with you, so that they have to learn, well, that's what you get, and then sometimes I'm separate, and you're going to have to be okay with that. And just that mix of that practice and that in between, but giving good walks with your dog with rules and boundaries. Hey, don't cut in front of me. Sniff only for 3 seconds, then we move on. Or stop at all the corners. Just add complications. Add things you ask of your dog on a walk. Increases the quality time. It's like if you're with your wife or husband. If you're sitting there just dead staring at a TV for 3 hours and you don't talk to each other, you spent quantity time, which has some value too, but you haven't had quality time. And then your husband or your wife goes up to play on their computer for the rest of the night, and you are left wanting. And what that is that you didn't engage, you didn't connect, you didn't transfer ideas, you didn't make each other proud or upset, or there's no real direct communication, because communication is both sides. You send a message, it's decoded. They send a message, it's decoded, and so on. And the dogs need that too. You need to have that full circle for at least a few minutes a day. That's a big quality time boost. So things you do already, you don't need extra time, you just need extra quality in your time. So the things you do every day, such as walks, going in and out of your bedroom and so on, feeding, just add rules, add complications, ask something from your dog so you can show them that you're proud and you're happy for them to do something for you. That really, I've noticed, makes a huge dent in separation anxiety. Now, that doesn't mean some dogs have general anxiety that then also has separation in there too. That may need medications. That I'm not a veterinary PhD or behavioralist that way. I don't do drugs. I don't prescribe drugs. And should have worded that better. But some may think otherwise. But anyway, so you may want to go talk to your vet or a PhD veterinary behaviorist to see if medications would be right for you or for your dog, or both of you. I don't know. Sometimes I've told clients, so the dog needs meds. You might need some therapy too, because sometimes the dog is a mirror. Actually, all the time dogs are a mirror, but sometimes it's very painfully obvious. And I'll be like, look, I'm not telling you to cure your anxiety and depression now. I'm saying understand it. Work through it for yourselves, because if we understand ourselves, we have more to give others. Being self-aware, being compassionate anyway. That's critical. So a lot of times what I'm working with isn't just the dog. And what makes me think that I'm more successful with certain cases isn't just that I love and care for the dogs, I understand them, but I'm also working with the people because I love them too. And my contemporaries even have told me with their own words, the PhD behaviorists that were my mentors when I was 10 to 15 years old, they told me with their own words, I hate people. I'm just so frustrated with people. I don't like people. And even then, at that age, I'd look them in the eye and be like, what are you doing in this field then? I know it's easy to think as a dog behaviorist, you're a dog guy and it's all about the dogs. And of course, that's a big part. The bigger part is the people. You are your dog's world. If I don't encourage you and educate you and tell you the truth with, hey, here's the solution. Yeah, you're making this worse, but here's how you can make it better. A lot of times, if you're making the behavior worse, that's great. It means you're the key to making it better than anyone else. Just recognizing that in yourself, being patient with yourself and working on that too in yourself can help the dog. So I always tell people I'm in the business of changing hearts and minds, starting with the people's. Because if I don't make an impact on you and inspire you and educate you and give you strength to deal with some of the behaviors that are really intense, like the dogs that bite people, I've done nothing. No matter how much I've changed the dog, I have not done enough, because it's about you guys. And that's why I had to tell my mentors, it's like, well, because they told me for years, don't do this. You won't be able to make a living at this, or it'll be miserable. I'm like, I've never been happier. I've been doing this 15 years this year. I'll never look back. I was able to buy a house. I mean, that's something that in my family is just a dream. And because I do what I do my best, I was able to take care of myself. I was able to have a life. So I'm glad I quit listening to those people a long time ago. So anyway, that's basically my journey. Anyone have any other questions or any issues or Greyhound specific problems? I know they're not really a troubled dog. Hey. Oh, steps. Slippery surfaces and steps. That's true. That kind of ties back to my the whole dog is like a Jenga set thing. They're not very stable at low speeds. Well, I think first I would say, well, how are the steps structured? Is there any way we can change it, such as add treads? I added treads to, yep, that can help. It's not usually the cure, but sometimes. So that's the first thing. Our steps are Victorian era. So back then they didn't have any standards. It's like, these are steps, just whatever. And they're just as deep as they are tall. And we slip down them all the time. I don't know how our Greyhounds, but my Coburn is exactly the length of those steps. So he has a bunny hop up each set. I'm waiting for the day he can't do it anymore. I'm kind of upset about that. But I can't change it because they're Victorian steps in an 1890s home that I'm not going to be able to change the geometry to make that better. So sometimes avoiding the steps, if you can't change it enough to make it truly safe for the dog, is of course key. Accepting that reality sometimes is important. Adding treads if they're good steps and they're physically able to go up and down them. But I think taking your time and being patient and physically moving the dog or holding on to them in a way that encourages them to move and shows them gently how to move their feet, just one step at a time. That has helped a lot of clients' dogs and helps you be patient and calm because they take a lot of cues from you. So if you're frustrated and upset, just go up the stairs. That's going to make it worse. And if you don't make them go up the stairs, that's not going to change anything. So you have to have that mentality of finding that middle ground, that balance of how can I move their feet and communicate with them and move them physically up, and how much is too much. Take 2-3 steps up and then you can go back down and go away, and just don't let them run away. If they get down the steps after going up a few and they run away like it's something to retreat from, get a hold of them and bring them back and have them touch the steps again, and then let them go away calmly. Because what a dog does after an incident is sometimes more important than what happens during the incident. So even if he successfully went up a few steps and then he was able to retreat or run away from the scary steps, all he remembers is he escaped the steps. So we want to retcon that. We want to bring him back and show him the steps and make him either treat off the steps or do anything that gives him pleasure, and then let him calmly leave the steps. And then you bring him back to the steps later in that day if you think he can handle it. Watch how much they can take too. If you're just repeating things too frequently to the point where it's stressing the dog out, that releases a lot of chemicals that keep memory engrams from being written. Fear stops memory engrams from being written, and you're actually not helping the dog learn anything except for to be emotional about the situation. So watching how much they can take and accepting that and working with that is critical. But yeah, just a few steps at a time, and then let them go and let them retreat, gently, and just do that over and over again. And if it's all steps or certain types of steps, if you can find steps that are shorter distances, like outdoors or in another spot or at a shopping center, anywhere, a friend or neighbor's or family member's house, there's fewer steps and they're still nervous about them, but it's something that you can get up like 4 or 5 steps and accomplish it. That is practice still. You don't have to practice with the specific steps that they're scared of. You can find an easier way to confront and deal with this. So you see it more scientifically. How can I control the variables? How can I make this easier but similar so we don't have so much to bite off, the dog and yourself, and that we can accomplish and succeed and be proud of them, and then just step that up bit by bit wherever possible. And then I've had dogs where I've had to, I wouldn't maybe recommend this with Greyhounds with their general temperament, but I have had dogs where I'm like, okay, well, this just needs to happen. And I'll kind of like walk them away from the object and then kind of run them towards the object and use the momentum, just kind of semi-drag them up, not like really rough, but firm. Let's go up these steps. I'm just going to do this. And they go up the top of the steps, and you're just like, okay, it's normal. So sometimes praising them after the fact makes it weird, and it marks it as something strange rather than dogs go up steps, and that's fine. We may have ran up them. I may have drug you up them, kind of, but now you're up here. Big deal. Whoop. Let's move on. So that's where knowing your dog is important, too. Do you have a question? Oh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're saying your dog was reactive, and then while on leash, you're able to directly redirect him and control him, and so you've gotten him through the reactivity on leash, obviously. So that's great. So you already have an experience and a way to communicate. Do you use specific cues for his reactivity on leash, like look at me, or you ask him to sit? But in the car, he probably escalates quicker, and you can't pay attention, so you can't correct it earlier. So it's instinct, and he's no longer thinking; he's just reacting. So he's not listening, can't listen to those. It's not that he's not listening; he literally can't hear and can't process when you say sit. And I've had clients with this situation before. And it's always different with each dog. Have you? He rides in the back, right? He rides in the back seat. He doesn't ride up front ever. That's good. You don't want the airbags situation. But sometimes, like with my van, my dog rides with me everywhere, and so I actually literally went in and physically deactivated the passenger airbag because I want him to ride up front. For similar reasons, because he can be reactive about cats and dogs through the barrier. It's a barrier reactivity. The fact he can't get to it gets him frustrated, and it escalates him even quicker. You have that extra fuel, not just they want to go see the dog, but now they can't get to it and they get really frustrated. I have used riding crops, like horse riding crops. Now, of course, not to hit the dog. Don't ever hit the dog. But they're gentle, and they're flexible, and they give you added reach, and you can reach back and touch them to get their attention and like flick their ears or move their face away. It's a little tricky while driving. You may want to practice at low speeds. Yeah, you can teach him to accept that tool in the house too, so he has a little practice with it. Very good thinking. See, somewhere where it's easier for you to focus on, you can get him used to that tool and think of a cue, something unique to associate with that too. So when you can get him calmer, you can redirect him to something like lay down on the seat or look at me or anything else. Do you think a treat would distract him in the car? So that might work better. So he's affection motivated, not treat motivated. That makes it harder for some dogs because the treat, you're like, I got this treat, and you're like, oh yay, and it's easy here. And some dogs, when they're in that state, they're so anxious and upset they don't care about treats. So, but the riding crop can use like an extension of your hand to be able to touch him with affection and distraction. Hey, touch the nose, touch the ears, touch the butt, whatever's sensitive. They go, whoa, what was that? It was me. Go lay down or go sit down or do whatever I know you know to do, and then I'll give you affection through this. Or if I can reach you, I'll give you a flat hand touch. So you're not stroking them and adding energy back. You're giving them that affection. That might help. That's going to take some time, definitely. Yeah, so you didn't know what steps to do and exactly what to do. And you could also cheat a little and maybe visibly block off using cardboard or anything to block the window, so you reduce how much he views. So even if he can see out of the other windows that you're using to drive safely, the one right in front of him, it breaks it up and it gives you a window, but not him a window, but you a window to correct him and redirect him because it breaks that visual. So it might be something you can temporarily do in your car if you're willing to do that can kind of assist a little bit, right? You had a question? Someone else had a question?
Park the car.
Oh, yeah. Park.
Have people have friends walk the car.
Yes, simulate it. Yep.
And when you're not moving,
Yeah. So that's a great suggestion that I sometimes suggest, but I kind of already assume people don't have friends, but I probably should quit doing that. But yeah, if you have, but because a lot of my clients don't have friends with dogs or people that have time or availability, but there you go. Borrow people. Yes, I tell people go to shopping centers, borrow some PetSmart. Yep. Go somewhere you know dogs might be. Yep. See. Group sharing here is a great idea, and so but it's basically ties back to what I said earlier. It's like science. Create a situation, a simulation of it where you can control variables to some extent. A very important variable to control is not crashing your car. So that's very good. Thank you for suggesting that. Do you have a question?
I have a dog that overcorrects.
A dog that overcorrects other dogs?
She's not aggressive about it. She's definitely just asking for space, but it's definitely more than needs to happen for like a simple sniff. And I don't know how to help her work through the big feeling that she's having, that she feels like she needs to overcorrect.
Yeah, some dogs are real diva-ish that way. It's like, rah, so they overcorrect with not true aggression, not harm, but it looks terrible, right? Big mouth open, big bunch of noise. Usually what I suggest in that case is start paying attention to what the dog doesn't like, and you get involved. So I will usually go in and either pre-correct or correct in the moment while they're freaking out, or right before if you can help it, and say, hey, I see you don't like that dog sniffing your butt right now. You don't like dogs being near you when you're laying down. So stop, look to me, I got this. And then you go do it. When she sees that she doesn't need to blow up to get the reaction she wants, that you will come and correct her, she should start stepping that down, where she can just more healthily say, hey, stop that, and be like, okay, I got this. Oh, man, that was really loud all of a sudden. Say, hey, I got this, and I'll deal with it. And I tell clients that all the time. Dogs shouldn't have to self-manage their own situation and their boundaries. You should be involved in a lot of that. You should see that and get involved. That's why I can have 25 dogs in the back of my van, because they know I have a 7-inch, well, they don't know I have a 7-inch monitor, but they know I see them somehow magically. I have a 7-inch monitor with a night vision camera. I see all of what you're doing while I'm driving, like a rear view mirror, and I'll correct them. Hey, I see that. Don't do that to that dog. And so all of them are stable, and they don't fight and cause problems because they know they're watched and managed, and they don't have to take it so far for themselves, that they'll be supported. And I have pack members. I have my own dog, Mimo, I used to have. He passed away last year. But he was like my right arm back there. He would see ahead that dogs are getting annoyed. He'd go in and distract that dog or tell the other dog to back off, and he'd physically block them. And if a dog was really scared, he would see that, and he would push the other dogs away, nuzzle them or nip them a little bit, and he'd lay down in front facing the opposite way from that dog to give it a safe space to chill. And so those are the kinds of things we can do. I learn a lot of what I do and how I communicate with dogs from the dogs, from really intelligent, healthy dogs that are natural born leaders, which is very rare in the dog world, to be able to, here's how I get involved. Here's how I can correct that. Are we at time here now?
Got another minute or so.
Yeah, the guys before me went over about 15 minutes, but I'll not that I'll make that your problem. But anyway, so does that answer your question? I don't know if I finished my idea there, but yeah, just get involved, just redirect and see what's really going on with your dog, and learn from them about where her boundary is, and then teach that to the other dogs a little bit further back. Hey, if she doesn't want you in her face, then don't get too close to her face, back off. Right? It would come to me instead. Or if a dog wants to play with her and gets upset, so sometimes it's about dogs. Hey, I want to play with you. Well, that dog doesn't want to play. How about you come to me when you want to play, and I'll play with you. Or I'll redirect the dog to another dog that is happy to play that game, and that dog is sure not. All right. I think I'm done with questions since I have a gentleman here waiting for me. But I'd be happy to answer any questions at my booth. I'll be right there. It's probably easier than doing it here, but thank you for listening. Once again, I'm Kyle Adams. I'm Captain Spish. I have a podcast that's on YouTube and anywhere you can get podcasts. So I'll be covering a lot of these subjects and more in the future. And hopefully I'll have you listening to me there. All right. Thank you for listening.
It was unconventional, but it worked.
And I never tell clients, just like I never tell the dogs, not to be scared.
Unfortunately, dogs don't have the ability to just talk it out with you.
See, there's all kinds of different types of bites, but I'll get into that later. What's happened here? How did this start? How can I help you? You reward good behavior and you discourage or redirect bad behavior into good behaviors. Warm talk, anecdotes, stories, get to know me, get to know them.
Yeah.
What you do or don't do with that dog, how you handle that dog, how you think and feel and what you do with your thoughts and feelings around that dog. And it's going to be for the rest of that dog's life.
You can't just unplug the corgi and plug him back in. I'm going to be open and honest about it. And that was like watching art.